All right, so Earl dropped some rap songs, and I don't know. It's interesting because my first listen to this album, I was kind of like, I don't really know about this. This sounds really like almost like I'm listening to like an old record. Like it sounded incredibly like I don't know, like fuzzy at times, and also at times it was kind of like jarring, like the way that the samples were so chopped up and so looped. And then I listened to it a second time, and I was like, oh, this is fucking great. And I'm not really sure what it was about the second listen, and the more I think about it, the more I think it was probably, I think the loops and the samples seem to really hit for me, but Earl just is so fucking good at rapping. It's like insane how good he is. And he's what, like 25 at this point?
24. Yeah.
24. And this is his third album and like fourth or fifth project.
Fourth solo project, third album. Yeah. Of course he was on the Odd Future projects as well.
What was your take on this album? Because I think it was a bit surprising for what Earl's put out before.
Yeah, no, honestly, I wasn't that surprised because we had those two singles, Nowhere to Go and The Mint, and those were basically what the rest of this album was. They were dense, conscious raps, you know? And like you said, there is that weird, like, fuzzy vibe that takes getting used to. But Earl was getting to this kind of lyrical content in his last project, I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. That was really the first breakaway from what he was doing with Odd Future. And it's funny because you think about Earl, he is this incredibly lauded lyricist, lauded rapper that has totally rejected fame. And it's really quite an interesting story. Like you said, he's only 24, but we've known about him since he was 16. And it's been quite the long journey. Obviously, him and Tyler are still friendly, but have gone their separate ways musically because they're very much in different lanes. And what we have with Earl, I'm really happy that he came back, even if this is a short project with only 25 minutes or whatever it is like you said, on second listen, once you get into this vibe and you kind of get accustomed to what you're listening to, he raps his ass off to the surprise of nobody. And he has a lot to say. I still need to keep listening because, some of those songs where his delivery is quite slow, he's still saying a lot. But in other songs like Cold Summers or The Bends, these are like classic Earl rapping his ass off songs. So I was a big fan of some rap songs. And I think obviously it's not a project for everyone. This is a project for people that either are accustomed or attracted to his darker, sadder lyrics or are big fans of technical rap ability, right? But if you're a 6ix9ine fan, you're probably not an Earl Sweatshirt fan. So it's definitely an acquired taste.
And he self-produces too, which I think is really pretty amazing because you think of like what Kanye does and how he's so known for chopping up samples and putting them in interesting parts and using that to make interesting songs. This is in a very similar vein. It's funny though because you talked about how Tyler and him have such different lanes. I do think one thing that they share is an interest in similar sounding music because like the jazzy vibes from Flower Boy, I think really come through in this. And it's interesting that they have that same through line of musical interest because, Earl moved from being West Coast to collaborating with a lot of East Coast people, especially on the last album and then on to this one. Especially like Standing on the Corner is someone that stands out. And also what Navy Blue on The Mint is a New York rapper. But it seems like they still have that, I don't know, that connection that I don't think anyone who listened to Odd Future when they first were forming, like 10 years ago now, would have ever expected. And they become these awesome musicians. We talked about the internet as well, who lauded for their musical abilities. Odd Future, I think, blew away everybody for what they became from what they were originally seen as.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's on one hand, like selfishly, I wish we had like a Vince feature, because him and Vince are still close. They were hanging out at the Mac Miller tribute, like recently. So, and there's pictures of them in the studio, on social
Yeah.
media, last month or something. So they're so cool. And obviously, as we've watched Vince, who was an Odd Future affiliate, not really a member, but he was cool with all of them from their early goings. As we've watched him blossom, and we reviewed FM, of course, check that review out, SoundCloud.com/Nostalgia Pod. But we watched Vince, pop off. We watched Tyler totally bloom with Flower Boy, and Earl continue to, just do what he always has done best. It's, I kind of would love to see them reunite with, their power levels have risen, it would be cool, but still good.
Interestingly, I was trying to think of a comparable for Earl. Is there anybody you can think of? It's tough.
I mean, honestly, it's like you mentioned, he's got a lot of underground New York rappers on here. I'm not even that familiar with most of these guys, and he's lately been shouting out artists of that ilk. Like, he's a big fan of Ka. Ka's an older rapper, but he put out a really well regarded project earlier this year under the Hermit and the Recluse name, and it's funny because in terms of like mainstream artists, even artists that we've reviewed or acknowledged, like, he hasn't really associated with much of any of them recently. I mean, Mac Miller probably would have been someone he was in the studio the most with, and obviously we know that's not going to happen anymore. So in terms of contemporary, it's tough, man. I nothing comes to mind, to be honest. It's like, I wanted to say Action Bronson at first, but like Earl just tries harder than Action, and
yeah,
Vince, I mean, they're cool, but like Vince definitely does different stuff. He's really more gang talk than Earl ever was.
right.
Earl never really was about that. Yeah, I don't know. It'd probably have to be some low key West Coast artist I'd have to think of, but I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, I was just sitting with that, and I think that really just highlights how much of a unique artist he is at this time. He really, like you said, he bucks conventional stardom, conventional hip hop. And if you aren't familiar with him, definitely take the time to do that. His original mixtape as well as Doris, I think, are both really strong projects to listen to. So go back and check those out, and definitely check out some rap songs. I think we're going to have one or two on our playlist